everyone, welcome back to another video where today we're going to be solving Leetcode problem 13 titled Roman to Integer. So before we actually start solving the problem, let's just go ahead and analyze the problem statement and understand what we're tasked to do. So the problem says that Roman numerals are represented by 7 different symbols: I, V, X, L, C, D, and M. Okay, and we'll see a symbol corresponding to its specific value, where I corresponds to the integer 1, V corresponds to 5, and so on and so forth as the integers keep on increasing. So for example, 2 is written as 2 i's, or II in Roman numeral, just 2 1's added together. 12 is written as XII, which is simply x plus II. And the number 27 is written as XXVII, which is XX plus V plus I, okay, or 20 plus 5 plus 2. However, Roman numerals are usually written largest to smallest, from left to right. However, since the numeral for 4 is not 444 or 4 i's, instead, the number 4 is written as IV. Because the 1 is before the 5, we subtract it, making 4. The same principle applies to the number 9, which is written as IX. There are 6 instances where subtraction is used. The I can be placed before V, creating 5 minus 1, or 4, and X, 10, to make 4 and 9. X can be placed before L and C, 50 and 100, respectively, to make 40 and 90. And C can be placed before D and M, 500 and 1000, respectively, to make 400 and 900. So we're given a Roman numeral input, and all we have to do is convert it to an integer. So before I actually start solving this problem, I'll give you guys a couple seconds to kind of just decode this in your head and think about how you would approach this. Okay, so the first thing that I would do is actually simply create a hash map, or dictionary in Python, relating each specific Roman numeric value to its integer definition. Okay, so I'll create a hash, okay, and hash map, okay, and we use it like this, and this is what I'll do. I will say that the string I corresponds to 1, okay. I'll say the string V corresponds to 5. And keep in mind, I am simply using the definitions provided in the problem here in this portion, okay? And just mapping each Roman numerical value to its integer definition. So I'll say X, should be capital, sorry, should be corresponding to 10, while L should be corresponding to 50, okay? And I'll say, what is this? C should be corresponding to 100. And I'll say D should be corresponding to 500. Alright, this should just be a... And finally, I will say that M should correspond to 1000. Okay, let me just bring this a little bit higher up. Okay, so now that we have this hash map relating all the key value pairs together of Roman and integer numbers, now what I have to do is I have to consider both my cases. So I have 2 cases. The first case is that S at I, a specific indice, is less than S at I plus 1. So the number that we're looking at is less than the number that we're looking at right next to it. In that case, I have to subtract that value from my total number. And if that is not the case, I simply have to add it to my total number. So I'll set my total number equal to 0, because we actually haven't looked at the array yet. And then I'll say for I in the range of the length of our input string S, which in this case is just simply a string of inputs, Roman numerical inputs as a string, and then I'll actually start, working on my case. So first I have to see if my I is actually within range. So I'll say if I is actually less than the length of the S minus 1. And the reason why I do -1 is not only do I want to check if it's not the last index, I want to make sure that it's one less at the last index at most. And the reason why is because I'm looking at I plus 1 as well. So at most, that can be corresponding to the last index. So it's actually within a valid range of our input. Okay, so if I is less than the length of s minus 1, the current indice that we're looking at, and our hash map at s at I is actually less than the hash map at s at I plus 1. Okay, if that is the case, then what we need to do is we need to subtract that value from our total number. So total number minus equals that that hash map value. Sorry, there should be an h here. Hash map value at s at I. And if this is not the case, well, in that case, sorry, my bad, it should be a lowercase e. And if that is not the case, I can simply add it to my total number variable, which is essentially what I'm going to be returning at the end. That contains the total value that our Roman input actually has. So Roman total number plus equals hash map at s at I. And at the end here, all I have to do is simply return my hash map once I'm done with this iteration outside the indented block of my for loop. So I'll say return our total number, just like that. And now if I were to run this, you would see that it is accepted, and if I were to submit this, you would see that it is very efficient, and it definitely does work. So before I end the video, let's just go over a quick recap of this code. I created a hash map that related every key value pair as a string, because our input was a string, a Roman value, to its corresponding integer. I declared a total number that we're eventually going to return 0, as we haven't actually scanned through the array yet. I scanned through each indice of my array input, or in this case, the string that we got from the user as a Roman numerical. Then I checked if that is actually within the range less than 1 less than Roman, or Roman at -1, 1 less than the last indice, because I was comparing that indice and the indice after that, okay? So I had the first case. If the hash map at that indice in the input string was less than the hash map at the indice, then the input next to it, then I'll actually have to subtract that from my total number as denoted by the problem. Because the problem said here, right here, because the 1 is subtracted before the 5, we subtract it, okay? And if that's not the case, meaning hash map at s of I is not less than hash map at s of I plus 1 strictly, then that means it's a normal value, and I can simply add that to my integer, to my total number. And then simply have to return that total number containing the integer value of my Roman numerical input string. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something new and understood this problem. And I really just wanted to cover this because it's a very common interview coding question in a lot of different companies, and I felt it was great for you guys to just, cover this. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.